Here more of the Second American Revolution. I want to talk a little bit about another way of looking at what's going on. I mean, it's possible for people to look at the situation and say, well, America's in decline. And a lot of people are saying those things. They're looking at the changes going on in the world, and they've seen the economic fortunes of a place like China getting better, and they can say, well, America's in decline, and woe is me, and oh, if it is in decline, we've got to do all this stuff to make it work better, and of course the politicians will be going on about this, that, and the other thing. Well, the fact is America is not in decline. America is going through a crisis of growth, and it's kind of a crisis of spiritual growth, and I mean character growth. And it's the kind of thing where you either step up to the plate, and put your wheel to the grindstone. I mean, we can think of all kinds of cliches, but I think everybody understands what I mean. It's not time to lay down and go, oh my God, oh, woe is me. We don't need to do an Eeyore all over the place. We need to say, I'm not going to be defeated by this. I am going to find a way to work with other people to solve these problems together. And this process, this growth that goes on for the American people is going to make us stronger. Now, what's the thing? Well, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Well, it's a truism, and a truism is the kind of thing that's true, but you have to watch it a little bit because truisms aren't always true. They aren't universal laws. But the fact is that tough times develop character. And we're in tough times, and we can develop character. But you don't develop character by being mean-spirited or putting down other people or all the different kinds of temptations you can have that can maybe get you to saying, oh God, woe is me, no, I'm suffering, somebody else must have done it to me, I'm going to really screw them. Yeah, well, all those people running around blaming somebody else for the troubles they're in and going around screwing other people or stealing from them or whatever, they're just agents of chaos. If you remember what I said about the Dark Knight and agents of chaos. We have to be agents of order. We have to be creative. We have to find things to do that deal with stuff. And of course, there's long-range reasons for this. I mean, when I talk about the Second American Revolution and the need for a second constitution, I'm not just blowing smoke up in some kind of theoretical way. Let's take a look at a real problem, a real world problem that's hanging over the head of us, the famous Damocles sword over America. Because of, hard to say exactly, but you could say because of the mistakes of people, including ordinary American people, we became a huge debtor nation in the world economy. We've been living high on the hog, we got all our electronics, we got great food. I mean, you go in a grocery store in America and you just, wow, that's really interesting. I worked for a while in a hospital where there was a woman who'd recently immigrated from Russia, and she didn't speak English very well, but I had some time to talk to her, and I said, well, what was it like, I said to her, the first time you walked into an American grocery store? And she looked at me, and she got this really weird expression. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry, in part because she felt understood. That was part of it. And in part because it was such a tragedy, and in part because it was so absurd. I mean, this is a woman who would stand around in Moscow and wait 10 hours for 10 pounds of rotting rutabagas. And she walks in an American grocery store, and the excess is excretory. Okay? So, we've been living this excess. There's a book called People of Plenty. Well, we've had plenty. Now we got to pay. Ha ha! Well, We also did a lot of good things. It's more complicated than that. In my writing, you'll find discussions about how there had to be a place like America as the world grew to what it became. And the people in America are up to the challenges that go with this. Now, what's one of the challenges that go with this? Well, we have all this debt. I don't know. China owns several $1 trillion worth of our treasury bills and has bought those bills, and that's a way of loaning money to the government, and it's entirely possible the government's not going to be able to pay, and there's all this other stuff going on. Now, what's going to happen? Well, if we look at the way China's behaving in the world, it's behaving pretty smart on a certain level. It's not smart on some other levels. I won't say it's wise, but it's smart. And one of the things they've been doing is they've been using their growing economic status that they got from selling us all this stuff we don't need, their growing economic status to sort of gain access to control over a lot of natural resources like oil and gas. And that's a pretty obvious kind of thing, that they've been able to do this, and they're very successful at doing this, and it's possible that competition in some of these places, like Afghanistan, is going to lead to war. And we think we're in Afghanistan because we're going to save the Afghanis, but the fact is, it's a lot of that, just like with Iraq and Iran, a whole lot of that has to do with the natural resources that live in those areas or move through those areas because of pipelines and stuff. And the strategic long-range implications of those for the industrial empires of the West and East are very important. The people that follow those things that are in these industrial empires of the West and the East, they understand this very well. And from behind the scenes, they want the United States government to be ready to send the American poor people over there to die in order to protect these resources. But that's another story. What's the other thing that's going to happen? Well, China's going to be in an ascendancy in a kind of way, and they're going to have an opportunity to do a very peculiar, very, very nasty thing to the American people. What are they going to do? Well, they're going to leverage their capital that they have because they own all this debt of the United States. They're going to leverage this, and they're going to use it to buy in the stock market international food corporations that own a lot of land in the United States. Now, we know that the small farmer disappeared, and we have these big corporations that own all this farmland, and they maybe lease it out to various farmers, but by and large they control a great deal of the farmland. Now, I want you to think about what it means if this farmland falls into the hands of Chinese ownership, through the ownership of these companies. Well, why would the Chinese do it in the first place? Well, they got to feed their people. And they've got a way to be one up on us. And instead of us having a grocery store like we had in relationship to the story I just told you about the woman in Russia, they're going to be in a position to reverse that situation. It's going to be us standing in 10 hours in line for a 10-pound bag of rotting potatoes.